Welcome back to Design Discord. I'm your co host, Alyssa Gerasimov. And for this episode, Fernando and I answered some of your most pressing questions. We took to Instagram earlier this week and asked you to ask us what you guys want to hear about and what questions we should tackle. So this episode is exactly that. If there's anything that, we don't touch on, we don't answer, feel free to leave us a comment. Send us a DM on Instagram, and we'll do one of these every few months or so, and we'll make sure to get to your question in the next one. Enjoy. Let's get into the questions now. Fernando, there was a question that went specifically to you, actually. And it says, Fernando, if you were to start as a designer today, what would you do to make it work?
It's a good question. I've tried thinking about this because we talk to so many younger designers, or I talk to younger designers. I'm always like, and you and I have just had a lot of conversations about this stuff, about starting a studio today, thinking about like the people on area. This is why I'm always like kind of thinking about this stuff. Um, I think that my gut instinct is that I would really, really focus on building a social media presence right from the beginning. I think that that's where my gut goes, is because there's so few ways now to get your work out there in a way that has as much impact as social media does. And so I think that I would, if I were younger and wasn't as like, you know, sometimes I feel like it's belabored to have to do social media stuff. But if I was younger, 26, 27, I was just starting my business, I think I would turn the camera on and I would try to really show my day-to-day life in the studio. I would try to engage people through social media as much as I can to build up my following there, because that seems to be the fastest track to being able to sell, because if I were not able to afford to do a fair right from the get-go, I think that I would put resources and time to that, because that seems like I would find a way to fit it into the flow of my everyday studio
Mm.
practice. So, especially if you're there by yourself at the beginning and you're just working on stuff, it's almost like building that audience right away, I think could be really beneficial. And I would, um or and mostly on Instagram, because I think about TikTok, I think a lot of people do that type of thing on TikTok, but
Mm.
I know that the buyers of design and stuff, I think, are more on Instagram, just because
Yeah,
that's where the industry
for sure.
is. And I think you could really build an awesome following on TikTok, but it may not translate to sales. So I think that if
Yeah.
you try to do the same, I would start there. I mean, I really believe, and I did this a lot in the last 10 years, was uh, yeah, build that audience through social
Mm.
media. We did the YouTube page. We did a lot of content on social media, on Instagram.
Mm.
And then and then, yeah, getting people to know you and your story and the beautiful objects that you make, I think is like,
Mm.
that's where I would start, you know? And then I would really do everything I can to not have to work a job. I think I've said this before. I would struggle as much as I could to not have a job so that I could keep making my work. And I would save, 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 save every little bit of money that I could. And I would try to get myself into exhibitions or fairs that
Mm.
would open up my exposure. That would be my immediate strategy if I was like coming out of school, or if I was a couple of years out of school. That would be the approach. And I mean, I think also New York is slightly problematic for being able to do that right now, because rents are so expensive. So I would probably also find a cohort that I could maybe share studio space with and build a network and a community.
Okay. I know this question went to you, but I give a little
Please.
my 2 cents?
Of course.
I was just thinking about how to phrase this, and I recently, like last week, I sent out my first batch of area rejection emails. Sorry, everyone. But I'm also not sorry because, you know, I in that email I like list 3 like main criteria for like why I would reject someone. And it's rare that someone's work is bad, right? Like it's rare that I look at something and I'm like, "Oh, that's just like not good or not thought through." Oftentimes people's work is good, but it is completely not communicated in their images. And I'm like I repeat this all the time. It's like 95% of people will encounter your work through an image. And through that one image, they will decide whether they want to see more of your work or they probably never want to see your work again. And so maybe what I would say is like release less work and take better images of the work that you do release. And think about yourself as like I hate saying this, but like you're building, think about art direction, think about brand, think about the way that you want to it's come out into the world, with your own work. And so many people underestimate the power of a beautiful image. And some
I mean,
people, like, email me back to those rejection emails, and they're like, "But I'm the only one in America that makes this kind of work or that has this technique," and I'm
mm,
honest with them, I'm like, I'm sure your work is beautiful in person, but you have to communicate it. If you're applying for a digital platform, if you are selling your work through e-commerce, through your own shop, please, like, do yourself a favor and take beautiful photos. And sometimes people will say it's too expensive, and I know that photographers can get really expensive, but I also know a lot of people that have gotten super creative with it. Find a photography student at a local college, find a photographer that will do a trade with you. There's these ways of I've also talked to a lot of people that have gotten all of their photography for free their entire career because they have a photographer who they have a partnership with. I just met a photographer recently in LA who photographs for a few people I know in New York. And it's almost always he does it on a trade and his whole house is full of their furniture, you know?
wow,
And you just like never
totally.
know who uh who you can find that will be able to help you out. And just like get a little more creative with how you find people to partner with you for that.
Yeah, dude, I totally agree. That when I was even suggesting that you focus on social media, I guess I meant that as well, making sure that the
Mm,
quality of your imagery and all that is high quality. And, you know, even yeah, even if you're gonna turn the camera on yourself, like, I don't know, think about the lighting, think about the things that, just make it an extension of your brand and who you are. Yeah. Who you wanna be out there. But yeah, that's a good one.
okay, let's see.
And by the way, if you did get rejected from area, get no good photographs and resubmit, and
Mhm.
that's it. It's as easy as that.
Yeah. Also, we were talking about this today, like, if you are somewhere and you need, like, right, help finding a photographer or something, I'm, like, happy to at least, like, try to connect you with maybe another studio or another maker that I know in that same city, and ask them, who their
Yeah,
photographer
exactly.
is and all of that. So, um, I don't wanna reject anyone, but,
Exactly, I know, of course not.
like, unfortunately, that's part of the game right now. Okay, the question is, what is the value in receiving a furniture MFA? Who is it right for and who is it wrong for?
And you wanna I mean, I have go ahead. What are your thoughts on this? You don't have an MFA,
No, not
right?
yet. I think a furniture MFA is a great way to kickstart a studio practice. If your goal is to create your own independent studio, I think getting an MFA is probably an awesome way to do that, where you have, 2 years to focus on just creating work. Your final collection out of that would probably be whatever collection you launch your studio with. And I've always seen, like I have my BFA in furniture and I feel like you have to be very, very clear and honest with yourself that you want to have a career in the furniture industry. And I think maybe I say, okay, you want to have your own studio because that's like majority of what RISD MFAs end up doing, or like their goal is to kind of build their own studio practice. But I think if you are very clear and honest with yourself that you want a furniture career, probably getting a furniture MFA is the right path. What do you think?
Well, I got an MFA, but I got it in sculpture. Um, was it worth it? I believe it was worth it in those days. I was back in
Mm.
2002 to 2004. Well, so well, really long time ago now. I will say this. I really think it depends on your life circumstances
Uh,
and the goals that you want to achieve. So what I mean by the life circumstances is this, like, first of all, if you getting MFA means that you got a BFA or an undergraduate degree, which means that you've already spent a whole bunch of money on college. Um, and then to say, okay, I'm going to add another 2 years of debt to that or this load, that's hefty. Now, a lot of MFA programs, they do offer teaching scholarships. Not all of them, but some of them do. So you have to think about, can I afford to take on this extra debt if you are in that situation? Because debt and then getting out and trying to start a furniture business with that debt already on you, I think
mm,
is very tough. Because
mhm,
you're automatically gonna feel the pressure of like, "Oh, crap, I've gotta start paying back these loans." Maybe you postponed your BFA loans during school, so all of a sudden you're getting 6 years worth of loans all of a sudden stacked on you. Now, n not a lot of kids that go to BFAs and MFAs have that issue because they're either their parents are helping them out, and in some cases, people are getting scholarships. If you are one of those that are fortunate enough to have their parents cover their MFA as well or get a scholarship. If you get a scholarship, 1,000% you should go because you'll build an amazing network of people. Like Alyssa said, you're going to get 2 years to kind of like start your practice, your career, it's like the first stages of feeling like all you're doing is coming to school and making work. It's a great experience. Then you're getting critiques. So you'll kind of get that feedback that you don't get when you're in the outside world, which is super crucial. Um, so if you are in that fortunate situation, I definitely think it's worth it. If you are
mm.
not, I would consider it highly because that debt is gonna sit on you for a long time, and this career path is not the kind of career path that you get out of school and you make money, as everyone knows. So, let's those are the factors that you have to ask yourself, I think.
Something that I will add, and I can't confirm that this is still active now, but I have a friend from RISD named Sam who went to do their furniture MFA at the University of Wisconsin. And the University of Wisconsin furniture MFA was fully,
Paid
I
for?
don't know, it's fully paid for.
Nice scholarships, yeah.
And it's like, because, and if you want to, have the time to be creative and to develop your work, there are, and like finances are a barrier. I never even knew that there were programs that were fully paid for. And, RISD is not fully paid for, never will be. Neither will probably Pratt or
Right.
I don't know, SAIC, SCAD. Those are expensive programs, but they're, I would just encourage, asking friends or, doing more research into programs that maybe don't have as much clout, but actually give you a lot of creative freedom.
Now, the pros and cons of that is that if you do that, you're not gonna build as big of a network. Those people at your, you know, Wisconsin school are probably not moving to New York to start furniture businesses, so
Yeah,
your
but then you
network
don't have $200,000 in loans. Like, could you
if
then take
you're
out a $200,000 business loan? Like, what is, like,
Yeah,
obviously
dude.
it doesn't work
Yes.
that way, but you know what I mean? Like,
Um, I've often asked that question of like, well, what if like, you talk to your parents, right? Like, "Look, you're willing to cover school? Okay.
Mm.
What if I don't do that? Or what if I get a full ride and I can get some of that capital to start my business when I'm done?" Whatever, be
Mhm.
creative. Because sometimes I think
Mhm.
that we see school as this kind of, like, mandatory expense, but think of it's like real green money that your parents or anyone is paying to that institute. It's, like, real, but it doesn't feel real, but it is real.
Wait,
It's like
do you know that I dropped out of a master's program? Did we ever talk
no,
about this?
no.
I can talk this is so different. So, I'll be transparent. My parents paid for my undergrad degree at RISD. I then decided 2 years later that I wanted to get a master's, and I, at the time, was living in Berlin, and it was COVID, and I think my whole brain was confused, and I applied to 2 very different master's programs. I applied to one in Austria that was like, I would have paid $100 per semester, something like that. It was like an experimental design degree in Austria. And I applied to NYU for a very different program. I applied to a program where I wanted to combine food studies and publishing because I thought I wanted to become a cookbook author.
I That's
You don't know,
hilarious. Okay.
this is a blip in my life.
Yeah, for sure. I love yeah.
I I've always been kind of, like, in and out of the food industry, and if I wasn't in design, I'd for sure be in hospitality, and somehow during COVID, food just became, like, a huge part of my life, so I thought I wanted to pursue food as a career, and what did I do? I went to, get a degree in food, and my parents wouldn't pay for the program, and I got there and they were so right because as soon as I started paying myself for the program, I realized that this is not what I wanna do, and I was like, "This is not worth my money," and I finished a semester and I dropped out because I, like, wanted I have credits, like, I have credits that could, in theory, be transferred somewhere else, but it
Wow.
made me like, it was a totally different experience than undergrad because I was actively asking myself every day, like, "Is this worth the amount of money that I am paying for this?" And the answer for me consistently was absolutely not.
My parents paid for a portion of my undergrad. My last year, uh, m my dad basically called me last semester and was like, "Sorry, I can't pay for the rest of the college," so I had to take out a bunch of loans. Um, and then I had to pay and my parents were definitely like, "We are not helping you with a master's degree in
Mm,
sculpture of all things." And then for graduate school, I did get a full ride, um, which was very helpful, but it didn't really cover living expenses.
uh,
And the other major expense in sculpture graduate school is the cost of making your objects because it's not like just paint on canvas, it was like objects. And so I had to take out loans to actually cover fabrication
mm,
and then living.
damn.
Yeah. So it ended up saddling me with about I think at the end it was like 35,000, and this is back in 20s many years ago, which felt like a lot. I did get a 2.65 interest rate because there was just at these times there was very,
Mm,
very low interest rates. And that's why I also, as I started to make more money, I didn't pay it off because I was like, well, it's not really worth it. But and also, by the way, all these loans are front loaded, so you're getting hit with the most interest at the beginning of the loan. So by the end of the loan, you're kind of like, well, it's,
mm,
$200 towards principal. So those are the things to consider, I think, with MFA programs. I would
mhm,
normally be like, don't do it, guys. In my
mm.
heart, I'm like, Don't do it unless you have very good circumstances in life to do it."
Circumstances or, like, I feel like from my perspective is also just, like, I realize I don't know why I went to do that program, like, real conviction that that program,
Right.
furniture, whatever it might be, is exactly the path that you, like, want to do,
Yeah.
and, like, think about it for, like, a few years before
Yes.
you
Now, if
before you
you're
decide.
in the art world, you and I don't know how many artists listen to this.
Mm,
If you're in the art world, 1,000, you should go to graduate school. It's really
mm,
it's part of what collectors and gallerists look at as a way to get, that they'll let you into their gallery. So, and I think we've
Yeah.
talked about it before. It's like Yale Graduate School is
Yeah, oh,
where
yeah.
you wanna
But
be.
I
Yeah,
mean, I'm in LA and, like, a lot of people here go to, like, the best school in LA is UCLA.
UCLA,
Apparently
for sure.
their program here is, like, the one that, all the like, LA gallerists go around to, and,
It's the West Coast Yale.
um yeah. But what's interesting, actually, I was recently talking to a friend who her goal is to, like, in the next 2 or 3 years to go to graduate school for her MFA, fine art painting MFA. And, she was talking to some, admissions or professors at the UCLA MFA program, and their average age of student is, like, early 30s,
Yeah.
and they actually, like they are look for and recommend that people take, like, a decent chunk of time between their undergraduate and graduate degree, both to develop their work and maybe also to just make sure that it's really the path that they wanted to follow.
I was the, well, second youngest. Youngest in my generation, second youngest in the program. There was one girl younger than me, Alessandra. She was 21 coming into school, graduate school.
Mm,
But yeah, I would agree. A lot of the people were a bit older than me and into their 30s. And not that that's like, it's not, it just is what you're saying. It's like you kind of know a little bit better by then. It didn't actually have anything to do with their success or their ability to stay in the industry afterwards. But I think a
mhm.
lot of them, you know, you're like tired of the grind and you want to go spend 2 more years defining your work, refining it, and getting some feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Yeah.
right.
I mean, this is a question that came up a little bit. What is the best strategy for getting in contact with galleries or interior designers?
That is a good
Kind of
question.
2 different slightly different strategies, I think, for both, but
Yeah. I know that in the on the gallery side of things, you essentially want one of the other gallery artists to introduce you. And of course, you're like, well, is that possible? But there's real statistics around this that that's essentially how other artists get into galleries is through recommendation. And
Mm.
so you want to, work your network in terms of that to get the studio visits. The only other way
Mm.
is to do group exhibitions where a gallerist may see your work, or if you're in the group
Mhm.
exhibition and the gallerist likes your work. Like when I first started, I did a group show in 2005, and the gallerist loved the piece and then asked me to be on the roster. And then the following year, I had a solo show.
Mm.
So that was, but that's the path, and that's usually through curate. If you're doing a show at a gallery, it's usually through a curator or, so
Mm.
it's really about that is a network. That's why you go to graduate school. That's why you go and
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. I would
And
also say, I mean, I definitely, like, have heard stories of, people getting into galleries through cold emails. Definitely has happened, but I think like, a lot of persistence. I think anything that comes from that, like, you have to have amazing work, amazing images of your work. I would even recommend in cold emailing, sort of like a tactic that someone gave me once is like, if you are doing that, put an image of your best piece directly in the body of the email. Because as soon as someone will most likely open that email and they want, like, the first thing they should see is an image of what you do. And, like, again, if that image is good enough, they might click again and, like, actually click on your website or your portfolio, but that is very challenging. But I just wanna say that it is possible, and I also do think these days it's really possible through Instagram, but again, with because you kinda like everyone's on Instagram. The gallerists are on Instagram. The curators are on Instagram. But again, it's like you have to have great photos. You have to be pretty active. Maybe comment on their posts and, like, get them to notice you too. I think you have to like, there is a path there too, but,
you're right.
both paths are
Yeah.
are
I
challenging.
listen. if you wanna take that approach, heck yeah, I mean, it's like the Gary Vee style of doing things. You DM people,
Mhm.
directly send it like you say, send an image of your work, try to open those conversations, cold calling. In the art world, that's very shunned upon. It's like,
Mm.
they really look down on that, I'm not sure why. I think the design industry is probably a little bit more open to it, cold
Mhm.
emails. Um I know some of the gallerists I know that would definitely open that email and
Mhm.
say, "No, thank you," or "Thank you,"
Just
whatever.
make yeah, or make it easy. Like, I just mean if you're make it easy for people to see right away what you're doing.
Right.
Like,
No,
don't
that's a
write a
good idea.
five-paragraph essay, but write, like, a few sentences and just put an image, and if they are interested, they'll respond, I think. Or
You're
they'll,
right.
forward it along to someone. I don't think it's a good idea ever, personally, to come in person to a gallery and, like,
No, I would
no,
agree with
the
you.
person sitting in the gallery is never the person that's making any decisions.
Yeah, don't ever show up with, like,
Yeah.
a portfolio and be like, "Hey, I wanted to drop this off," and leave it with they'll I don't know why if I were a gallerist, I would look at everybody. I'd be
I know.
I'd be like, "Sure,
I
what do you
know.
got?" Like, maybe I do find a gem out there. But I think, in talking to, like, Jonald Dudd, Chris, we were talking about and
Mm,
when I curated the In Good Company show, you get a lot of submissions that are you're like, "Uh-oh," like, they didn't get this at all. Like,
mm,
they're sending you, like, figurative paintings for a design show, and you're
yeah.
like, "No, we're doing a show on design." So there could be
Mm.
a lot of that wasting your time, so I think a lot of
It
gallerists
does it
just
does yeah, it made
yeah,
a lot of sense to me in that conversation why he said they charge a fee. Like, I've always been, like,
totally.
kind of anti-application fees, but he said it, and I was like, "Duh." 'Cause we had
It's
that
not
yeah.
duh right away. We didn't do a fee
Yeah.
for IGC, and it
Mm.
was like we got flooded with
Yeah.
stuff
But
that
it
made
makes sense
no
even
sense.
if it's, like, $5, like, people will think if they put in their credit card information or not, 'cause you
Yeah.
otherwise people just, like, submit, they upload
Yeah.
a picture and they click submit and then they
You're
forget
right.
about it. Yeah.
So, I would be careful with that, with just how you approach that, but every there's no formula to how to get your work in front of people, but, I would say that's a networking thing
Mm.
you gotta do is the best way, but,
And
uh,
what about for interior designers? What would you
okay.
say?
Interior designers look, interior designers are not gallerists where they have to sort of have a kind of a front, in terms of what kind of work they show, the thesis of their gallery. These are people that are out there really looking for work all the time, right? And they don't care if you went to University of Wisconsin or RISD. They're just looking for good new things that they can put in front of their clients. So I think that it's much more open to directly contacting them. Now, when we have our big interior designer guest that's coming on soon, we'll talk to her about this because I'd be
Mhm.
curious. So we're going to answer this a little bit deeper when she's on. Um, but it's okay. The design industry is a very friendly place. Like people are not. It's not dog eat dog the way the art world is. So it's a more friendly place. So if you said your work to their interior design, like all their emails to their email addresses because you think that they would like your work. I think if you do a large series of emails in that way, you
Mm.
will get some feedback from that. Almost
Mhm.
guaranteed because it's not like you're selling yourself to them, but rather you're presenting yourself to them and saying,
Mm.
"Hey, this is what I do." And listen, they can delete it or they can click it and say, "Oh, actually, I really like this. Oh, that might work for this project. Oh, hey, let me send it
Mm.
to Sharon or let me send it to Jimmy." And, I think they might, it's like that. In the art world, they have to like protect them. Okay, like they went to Columbia, they went to Yale, they did a group
Mm.
show here, they were in the Whitney Biennial. The design world is a little bit easier. So,
I think the challenge with the interior design space, and, like, I'm doing some cold emailing to interior designers now myself, is, like, um they get a high volume of emails from all kinds of companies wanting their attention.
Do they?
And yeah, and I think it's a question of like how do you break through that noise?
Mm, mhm.
And get them to, I don't know, have a call with you, look at your work, come, I don't know. I think it's also there's a challenge there of actually getting a response.
When I
Or yeah,
was
or like one other thing I'll say, and this is an issue I think that goes away over time as you develop, your roster of clients, but something that I found right now, like looking through a lot of interior design websites, is they're not transparent with like who works for them. There is rarely like a team page, and it's like Ashley, Joe, and Frank are on our team, and then they only have like an info at email. And so like in some industries, and then they're not like an industry that's that much on LinkedIn, for example. And so it's hard to find who's working where. And in some other industries, when I've done cold emailing in the past, you could be like Joe at companyabc.com, and you can like kind of guess how to reach someone real.
totally.
And it's been hard to find good emails in this world, I would say.
Yeah, you have to trust that all the info emails are going to someone. I wouldn't be discouraged by that.
Mhm.
You might be right there that they get a lot of noise. I mean, I think everyone gets a lot of noise in their inboxes.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think, for example, something I did early on, and I'm not recommending this, but this is something I did. I did and was able to make appointments with firms, and I went out in person and did presentations at the firms of my work, and they were all very welcoming. I mean,
Mhm.
again, that was now over 12 years ago. I think the industry's changed. There's been a flood of makers and a flood of just people in the industry. So maybe it was a little bit of a quieter place then where you could pull that off. But I remember I went to Nicole Hollis in California and had a nice little team of people there. She wasn't as big as she is now. And yeah, I did literally a click through presentation,
Mhm.
presentation of my work. And so, if you can get something like that, but yeah, you have to find these kinds of strategies, and you're gonna get a lot of rejections, but the ones that say yes, hey, you know, a great strategy is also saying, "Can I come in during lunch? I will buy you lunch. I'll buy your team lunch,
Mhm.
and I just wanna show you guys my portfolio as a lunch review." I mean, who's gonna say no to that?
Okay, how about this one? Any advice on showing work for the first time in a design week or design fair and how to maximize it? I don't know. I think this one's a hard one for me to answer just because I haven't
Yeah.
necessarily done this. I mean, I think, something that just comes to my mind in terms of maximizing it is like you could consider getting some PR specifically for that one event. Maybe for a design fair, it's a little different. I don't know if people do PR for fairs. Um, but maybe documenting the process really well for content, making sure that your maybe like regional emails, email list or like contacts that in that geography, you let them know that you're there. Um, I don't know what else I
You
would have
know,
to say about that.
I mean, look, they definitely do PR for art fair or for fairs, design fairs,
Mhm.
so I think there's it's never gonna be a bad idea to have PR. Now, not everyone can afford to do PR, so it's like if
Mm.
you are trying to maximize your exposure, um, oof, it's a tough question because it
Mm.
I'm trying to think of the most in general, how to maximize because every studio is so different, in terms of scale. And I would assume that this is coming from a younger designer who is like
Mm.
probably hasn't shown at one, but wants to figure out how to
Yeah.
maximize. So it's
I wonder if there's like I wonder, if you because maximizing to me sort of means, right, it's like ma what is the metric of maximizing? It's to drive traffic, to drive sales, to drive inquiries, which and then means you have to have more people know about what you're doing. I think fairs are generally pretty good about, you go to a fair because you assume that they're the ones doing a lot of that outreach and driving that traffic. I think something to consider is like, what is your overall messaging with what you're presenting? Like sometimes people will present new collections of work at a
Mhm.
fair, and then the story is bigger because it's not you're just at this fair with your work, but you also have this other launch that kind of is side by side that gives you like something else to drive momentum around. Or like in your case when you talked about the Aspen Fair where you guys are so calculated about what you show, and for in your case, it was like, "Okay, we're coming to a new market." The way that you maximize it is, like, by bringing your best hits
Bestsellers, yeah.
to that new geography. So maybe it's more just thinking about, like, what is the overall strategy
Yeah.
of what you're showing.
I would say also, to piggyback on that is if you're gonna do that, really when you're just starting off or you're early on, I would really try to show 1 or 2 pieces that are, like, banger pieces, maybe not your most sellable pieces, and maybe
Mm,
they're almost just like show pieces really, um, pieces that will get attention versus, you know, "Oh, maybe if I show smaller things, they'll sell and this and that." No, kind of do a splashy that was always my approach. I wanted to put at the fairs kind of like maybe almost unsellable works, works that are like, "Whoa, that's kinda
mm,
wild out there." Um, because those always garner the most attention, and then,
mm.
so
It's interesting because then people come up and they ask and you maybe get their contact info and
1,000%.
mm,
And sometimes
interesting.
the less is more if you have, um like, for example, I continue to think about and now I follow her on Instagram and her content comes up,
Mm,
uh Any Studio, I think,
mhm.
eh, not Annie Lee, but, A-N
Yeah,
yeah, you know which one,
AENY. Yeah, yeah.
A-E-N-Y.
I think like that, yeah. I think
Anyway,
so. We'll put it up on the screen.
yeah, I'll put so, now that I'm following her, it's like she had a few pieces that really stood out, and it wasn't about, it just, like, it's stuck in my mind, and now as I follow her, like, the only thing I will say, it's something that piggyback on something we talked about earlier. Please, please, please don't photograph your work in nature. Um, it's
Mm,
not a good vibe. You can't see the piece. It gets I understand why sometimes people wanna put their work in nature, because it's part of the theme or something like this, but it's really, really hard to understand work when it's photographed in nature. So,
mm,
but and I'm thinking of that because she recently put one of her pieces out in a yard or something, and it was very distracting. So anyway,
mm.
um, so yes,
That's an interesting piece of advice, like, do something that gets people to notice you
get
so
people to
that you
notice you.
get yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
It was a little bit about how like, that was my thinking with sort of the language that I put on the wall at the collectible fair last year. I had those big words, that said, "Do you know your neighbor is a furniture designer?" or something like that, and then it kinda made people think. They were like,
yep.
"Oh, what is
What
this?"
is that about?
And I think, finding
I
what makes
mean,
people stop and ask that, yeah,
just think about how
something.
you respond. Like if you're walking through a fair and like, let's say there's a booth or there's just like a section and it has one piece in it, but it's such a captivating piece or the scale of it is captivating. Something about it grabs you. You're definitely going to go and look like, and versus, right? We saw a lot of smaller booths at, Wanted this
Mm.
year, like, the person that had there was one that had a bunch of lamps, I remember, on kind of a corner,
Mm, mhm.
and,
Yeah.
they were ceramic lamps, and that was impact like, I liked them because but But imagine, I don't know, if there was, like, one big lamp that kinda shows off your whole style and, and also kind of, like, to be bombastic enough to take a whole booth and put one piece in it, you know? I don't know, there's something, like, you're like, "Damn," like,
Mhm.
you took this whole booth and put one thing in it, like, that's, like,
Yeah.
wow. I don't know, so think of ways to really stand out. I really went all out. I remember in 2018, uh, I did this booth for Collective, and, I made a whole installation. I wasn't really showing a collection of work. I just made a huge installation that, that had a sofa and a coffee table and everything in it, but it looked more like an art installation than
Mm.
nothing was for sale, by the way. And no, the idea was not to sell anything. It was more to continue to promote the studio as this kind of experimental
Mm.
place. And yeah, I mean, literally didn't really generate any sales, but got a lot of PR because
Mm.
everyone photographed the
Mm.
booth because they were like, "Wow, look at this crazy installation," And it was
Yeah.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was an
yeah.
interesting move. I had
That's actually maybe another thing that I didn't even think about where um I remember at Collectible there were a few booths that, to be honest, in my mind in person, like, didn't really hit that hard.
Mhm,
But I realized as soon as the photos came out that those people knew how to place work that looked fantastic in an
in
image.
photos,
Because
totally.
it's like, I don't know how many visitors fairs get, but the amount of people that will see that image online is so much bigger. And so maybe also approach the booth as like an image making opportunity. And yeah.
Oh,
Mm.
that's such a great point, and it you have to imagine that when a piece of like a magazine or an online magazine is getting imagery, they want the punchiest thing to put on their cover or to say,
Mhm.
"Oh, these are the highlights," and they need the images to look really good and stand off on the page. I used to use that strategy all the time. It was like, "Okay,
Mm.
cool. How is this gonna look in photo?" And then additionally, I had imagery ready so that if I wasn't using the booth imagery, if they did ask for imagery, I already had everything photographed in a
Mm.
separate space that looked punchy that they could use, that they were like, "Oh, this piece was at the fair or at the show."
Mm.
But
Yeah.
what you're saying is absolutely great, and, I think yeah, make an installation. I think I know exactly which installation you're thinking of because a buddy of mine, and they did a great job and they got it published everywhere. So,
Mhm.
was it
Mhm.
the one
Yeah.
with the curtain that came down on the floor and had the silver chair piece? Kinda I don't know, wasn't that one?
Mm. What is that
Mm,
one?
but anyway, it was
What was
published quite
that?
a bit and,
Oh,
it was at Collectible. It was
no, no.
anyway, so but
No,
that
no, I just
one
had I had a few different things in mind.
okay.
Like, just yeah, yeah. I don't remember with that curtain with the
We had,
chair.
like, a red curtain that came from that, hung from the floor from the ceiling down to the floor, and then the pieces were on top of the curtain, so you couldn't really approach them, so you were looking at the installation? No? It
Hmm.
was,
No, I don't remember that.
it wasn't too far from our booth, it was, like yeah. Anyway.
Okay, should we,
Alright, one more.
one more?
Sure.
Okay, I like this question because I think it's a good one to end on, okay?
Alright, awesome.
Do you believe a career in furniture design is financially feasible in this economy? I
Uh,
Okay, I'm gonna say
yeah, go ahead.
something. I
Yeah.
don't know if I you might laugh at me because this is my optimistic my naive 20-something optimistic mindset coming
Yes.
in. But, I remember I was on a call with, onboarding someone the other day or, yeah, I was talking to someone the other day, and they were like, "Oh, uh, yeah, this industry is, like, so niche," or something like that. And I don't like having that kind of mindset. My mindset is that people don't know about this industry yet. It is young. Like, to me, it is not niche, and I wish that there was just, like, overall, a more like expansive, like future looking mindset of seeing it as there is like opportunity that has not been uncovered yet, rather than uh it's, it's something that like isn't feasible or isn't possible. I do think it's hard, but I think that it is fully feasible to build a career in this space. You just like have to be kind of clear about who your market is, who your buyer is, and yeah, just like come in with a sense of clarity.
Mhm.
I think there's so
I
much opportunity for the design, like handcrafted object design market. I think it has a lot of opportunity, and I wish that um people were a little more optimistic about it.
I think that if people are not feeling optimistic about it, it's because we are culturally as a society right now, we're a lot of things are changing. A lot of people are
Mhm.
feeling a lot of different types of pressure that uh didn't exist as much before. I think they were always there. I think that they're on a at a different level today. Um, eh, just the fact that, you know, housing prices are where they are, rent prices are where they are. All of these things affect the mental strain that one goes through. And so when you're asking about feasibility in this economy, I think it has to do with like, well, there's no way to kind of get away with kind of like a slow start to your career where you slowly build. I mean, there is, but you have to have the means to do that. And so I think we're overwhelmed societally with, what grocery prices are like, what all of this stuff that we're affected by on a daily basis. And to think, well, how am I going to actually make the numbers work in this career with all of the headwinds? Like, you know, I gotta do social media stuff, and then I gotta be in my studio, I gotta pay for this, I gotta pay for that. So I think that that's what they're asking about the
I think it's
feasibility
just
of it.
it's also a question, but to me then it's not that the answer is the same, but I think you're so right, and I think it's more of like actually the feasibility of like being in any sort of job these days that is not going to pay you six figures. Like sometimes I get these newsletters and it's for like project manager role in Los Angeles, like salary 55 to 58K. And I'm like, how are people like those are, and it's I mean it's the same
Well,
question. It's like can
you
you get by on 55K from that
no.
job or 55K from a furniture business? Like it's I think it's so hard in no matter what career path you choose
I
these
think
days if it's not finance. I don't know.
I think you'd be really surprised, but actually we've done a little bit of, research into this, but
Mm.
in the United States right now, there's a staggering amount of people, something like 65% of young adults are being helped by their parents because they just
Mhm.
cannot make it, right? You have, the boomer generation that is the wealthiest generation in the history of humanity, and then now these other generations that are going through all sorts of there's the technological changes, then this AI change, right? And so there's a bunch of upheaval in terms of careers and the way that a career happens today, and the boomers have absorbed all of the jobs that were like 30-year jobs where they had, um, salaries and 401k programs, and all of that has aggregated to them. All the real estate is in their hands, right? So you have this whole
Mm.
generation of desperate people being like, "How am I gonna, do it?" And you're right, 55 to 58 doesn't cover it. So a lot of people
Mhm.
are getting help, and a lot of people don't want to admit it, right? They're like, there's also this like the real estate comes up a lot of it because a lot of first time buyers, like the average first time buyer is now in their 50s. And if
Mhm.
you're below that age, you're almost 100% of people are getting help from their parents to do this. So we're now in this
Yeah.
culture, this society where you cannot make it on your own, right? And there's this massive transfer of wealth that's happening slowly every single year from the boomer generation to the X millennials and Gen Z. And so either we're going to move into a society where everyone kind of needs a little bit of help to have a sustainable life and career, or something's going to change in society and we're going to somehow find an equilibrium again. But I think it's a very valid question to wonder how you're going to get out there and make this a viable career, because we are in a time that is, in my adult life, in my entire life and adult life, I've never seen this before. I've never seen a generation that has, uh, you know, to climb a financial mountain as big as it is today. It's
Mm.
just huge, and I don't see it getting any better, and I do worry about it often because, like, your
Mhm.
generation should be, like, 30-year-olds should be buying homes. That's not even a whisper of a thought in people's mind.
Mm-mm.
Like, I mean, it is a whisper in the thought, but they don't, they're like, "Okay, that's fuck it, I'm not gonna be able to do that."
Yeah,
Right, it's just like, forget
exactly.
it. And then
Yeah.
furthermore, to start families and all that stuff, which actually help the society continue to grow, but we're in this, like, crazy stage in society
Mhm.
where, and then add the layer of trying to be a creative artist, and I'm just saying, I think that most of this has to do with financial help from family members, or a support structure that's gonna help you make this feasible.
Mhm.
And, if you're not in that, you know, it is tough, and I feel super bad because I don't feel like I could have had my career under the circumstances that you guys are under today, your whole generation. I really
Yeah.
I empathize, you know, and Mika is 33, so we talk about it a lot because she's at that age, and she says a lot, her friends and stuff are y'all's age, and it's like, it is tough. Her sister, I see it all over, and I do wonder all the time. I'd love to, hear from people about this, but I think it's a major thing, so, um, yeah.
Yeah. I can't believe, I mean, I'm turning 27 in a month, and, like, I cannot believe that this was the age where people had, like, saved up, almost a full down payment, and were, like, about, had saved paid for a wedding, and potentially, like, had saved some money to, like, have a I'm like, where? You know?
Yeah.
It's
I
I
often
like,
wonder, like,
you see those, yeah. You
what's
see
gonna
those
happen
charts
to you
sometimes.
guys?
I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen. You know what's interesting though? I mean, this is, like, a little off topic, is there seems to be, and maybe this is just, like, what I see on my, everything, every kind of content you get these days, whether it's news, whether it's Instagram, whether it's YouTube, whatever, everything is tailored to my algorithm. So
Right.
sometimes I'm like, I don't know what if other people are seeing the same things that I'm seeing. Like, I'm just confused sometimes if all these things are happening in the world the same for everyone anymore,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, yeah,
know?
yeah, totally.
But I actually see on my Instagram feed so many young people having kids. Like women, I guess I'll call them, in there, like, who are 22 to 25, who are having kids.
Mm.
And I'm like, does it almost make sense to have a kid younger again, because you're like, you maybe, like, are figuring out your life and have, like, less responsibility at the time that your kid is really little, so by the time they go to school and you have that structure, they have that structure, you can have your own structure again. Like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting.
I haven't heard that from anyone else. You're kind of the first to mention that. I
Mm.
wonder if that's actually true, if it just lives in your algorithm, but I actually don't think it's a terrible strategy in the sense that, like, having a kid later in life is pretty tough. I mean, I guess
Mm.
it's pretty tough at any stage, but at least when you're young, you have the real energy to, like, push through those things, and then the kid will actually motivate you to not make kind of silly decisions about your career or the jobs you take. You just take life a
Mm.
little bit more serious when you're 22 and you have a family to support, or, versus
Mm.
kinda giving yourself time to figure yourself out, and then maybe in your 30s with, it kinda, like, fuels you early on,
Mm.
but
Mm.
I don't know how you get out of college and or whatever it is, and you have a kid and you have a $58,000 job, um, and you're able to
Mm.
support your family that way, because then you definitely have to have 2 people working at
Or
home,
how you
so
find a partner that you feel that confidence with. I don't know.
right. Well, that's the other one.
Yeah,
That's a different podcast,
yeah,
but
different
yeah.
question.
But that's,
For sure.
but no,
Mm.
I often wonder
But
about this, yeah.
yeah, I do say though, like, in terms of if this question is asking, it just says like a career in furniture
Yeah,
design. That can mean
yeah,
a lot of different things, right?
yes,
There's a lot of, you could work for design within reach as a furniture designer, and you can have
right.
your own business. And I do still think, and I'm a child of immigrants, so I was very much raised with this like entrepreneurial mindset, or being an entrepreneur is like the ultimate goal. And I do think that like if there are these jobs, 3, 4 years of experience paying 55K, and that is, and then you get a 2% raise like year over year or whatever. Like, I do think it's really worthwhile for anyone to think about, well, what does it mean to start a business? And that doesn't necessarily have to be like, a business of the type that I'm trying to start. Sometimes I wish I
Mhm,
just like started selling some random things on the internet just to like make some, like, I don't know, there's other making a course, or selling some other, finding a hobby that you love and trying to monetize that somehow. But I don't know, like, I think it's worthwhile to try to find your own like avenues to increasing your income in a more independent way. And that's probably the only way to, I mean, maybe in America, that's always been the like pathway to wealth, has been through entrepreneurship.
yeah. I mean, definitely, I mean, that's what this whole country is about, is come here and build something, but, that's not for everybody, and, it's tough. I know that 20 years from now, when we kinda look back at this time period, I think we're gonna be looking at a time period that was, like, quite difficult for this generation, and whatever the repercussions or the repercussions of what's going on societally, I think we're gonna be able to better understand it then, but
Mhm.
we're in the thick of it, and I do even going back to that other question, like, it's I think it is tough. I don't think it's impossible to start these businesses or be in this industry. I just think, you guys have different headwinds, and there's always gonna be
Mm.
people that that are there's gonna be people that thrive in this environment. There are gonna be successful design companies that emerge from your generation and the millennials, and even in my generation, there's gonna be someone that hacks it, because everyone adapts. Humans are so adaptable over time that we will figure it
Mm.
out. But right now, when you're going through it, it feels like you're trudging through this time period. It feels like we're like trudging through molasses at this time period, because everything's
Mhm.
getting harder, and
Mhm.
the ante's being upped every single day, and so you're just like, "Ooh," and you're like, "How am I gonna get out of this? And then is it worth it?" And then you're just like, "Ah, fuck it, I should just get a regular job." And it's like
You
but that's
explained exactly what happens in my brain every day.
we're in a weird time, and I don't know where the design world, like, what happens to it, but you guys will figure it out, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a big question, it turns into like a big philosophical life, where we're at as a society kinda question. So, but, like, look, you're an ambitious young woman who is, like, out there trying to do something freaking hard, building the business. Um, you're doing it on a shoestring, really, compared to what you could have gotten like 10 years ago. People would be throwing money at something like Area. They'd be like, "Sure," and it'd be a totally different thing, and now you have to, like, really figure out how to do it in a way that's cost effective. They use AI to help you, and, yeah, it's just a but good things will come from this time, and we'll
Mhm.
have learned how to, I just want, like, y'all to have the experiences that other generations had. You know, everything is aggregated to the boomers, and it's like kinda gets annoying. You're just like, "Damn, dude." And they keep taking more and more from the young and pocketing it themselves, man. You know what I mean? And so now they're just gonna, like,
Mm.
transfer it all to their kids, and these kids are gonna have a flood of money, but not know what to do or have any purpose in their lives. It's like a whole weird bunch of stuff is happening that we've never seen before. Yeah. So your face. Your face, you're like if you're on YouTube, you'll see your face. It's a great face. But anyway, if you're listening to us on Spotify,
Um, and on
she's
that,
like, and on that note,
I'm
we never
like,
talk about these types of things, but they are somewhat relevant to our
yeah,
lives and our
they're
industry.
extraordinarily relevant. I
Yeah, they
mean,
are.
they're
Yeah.
relevant in anyone's and everyone's lives.
So
I
we're with you
actually,
guys, out there. We
yeah,
hear you. We hear your struggles. We feel
mm,
it. We feel it too. Yeah.
yeah.
So,
Okay.
all right.
Well, we got through a small number of the questions we received,
Yes, we
so
did.
maybe we'll do this again sometime soon.
All right. Thanks for joining us on the #1 design podcast in the world.
Mm.
I don't know if that's
Woo!
I mean, I don't know. There's not that many in the design world, so I feel like we could be #1 if we tried harder.
Yeah, we.
Anyway, um, you got a lot we have been getting good subscribers, guys, so, we're really happy with that. Thanks for, leaving comments, and subscribing to the channel. Our YouTube is coming up little by little, and guys, we put a ton of effort into the YouTube, um, and and we're paying for it too. So go on to YouTube, check it out because you'll see images. We try to make it dynamic on there, and but yeah, go and check it out and subscribe. It's super easy. Just hit the button. It helps us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and share with a friend and leave a nice comment and,
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and tune in again soon.
next time. See you
Next
next
time on
time.
Design Discord.
Mhm.
Bye bye.
Bye.